Morning, everyone. Hope you're all well and staying safe. Trevor's asked me just to do a bit of a talk on the skimmer fishing at Alders Farm over the winter. Just how we were going about it, stuff we were using, and rigs and bits and pieces. I was basing all my approach around Groundbait, so I can talk you through a bit of that. What I was doing at the start of the match was feeding two lines, predominantly at 13 metres, depending on where I drew and how hard I thought it was going to fish. My mix was always based around a sweet fish meal, so I was using 3 pints of F1 dark, which goes straight into 3 pint bait tin, fill up. Oops, sorry, that one's really dirty. And then I was taking a 2 pint bait tin, and I was filling it up with Thatcher's Original and Super Sweet. Now this is quite a new ground bait. I don't think a lot of people have gotten on to using it. It smells incredible. It smells even better when you've had water to it. It's I don't think it's got any fish meal in it. I think it's predominantly crushed up expanders with the F1 additive in really maybe twice as strong as that F1 dark. But yeah, probably by the time we get back out on the bank, I don't know whether it's going to be suitable. It's not really going to be we're all going to be chucking tons of ground bait down the margins, trying to catch a great big carp. So that's the mix. What I'd start off with, I would have two lines. I wasn't squeezing it into a ball. I was just cupping it in loose, even in some of the pegs of 5-6 foot of water. So I'd have two lines at 13 metres, one off to the left, one off to the right. The big pot full, straight in at the start, with very few particles in, just a few dead maggots. I tried other times by putting 3-4 balls in full of loads of particles, and it just seemed to take them ages to settle on it. Up to sometimes 2 hours to settle on it, where my approach was sort of almost instant. And I think you could almost fill them up, and you really struggle to get a consistent run of bites on it. I think the days of bream fishing where you just fill it in and catch them doesn't really exist anymore. They very often feed up in the water, or they back off, and you just sort of try and feed for 1 or 2 bites at a time, and then you go on another line, catch a couple of fish, and then come back on the original line. You sort of keep moving around all the time. I was going on it generally after about 45 minutes. I'd always have a bit of a go for a carp, whether it be a maggot feeder or a hybrid, and sometimes you'd catch some, sometimes you were in a peg, there wouldn't be one there. And you'd always drop in on your skimmer line, get a few bites, and then it would sort of tail off. And then what I would do would be I'd put a small cad pot on and just fill that up each time with ground bait. Just give it a little tap in the top, and you'd put that on one line and then go and fish the other, and you'd catch a couple of fish. Then you'd go back onto the other line, but when I was going back onto that line, I was filling the pot back up and then topping up the other line. So you sort of keep trying to keep both lines going, and it wasn't a case of where you could just sort of plunder one line continuously all match. It was a case of I found about 2 to 3 was the optimum sort of skimmers you could catch on one, and you'd wait longer and longer and longer for a bite. So by just keep putting one of those in, you'd let them come back and settle. You go in there, catch a couple of quick ones, and then you go back on the other line, and that seemed to be the fastest way of catching them. I think in 3 hours you'd catch between 20 and maybe £30 if you didn't have any carp problems. I had lots of weights in the 22 to £27. That seems to be quite an average. They seem to go about I don't know, if you had 50, I think you'd have like roughly about £25. So that give you a rough idea of the stamp. About 8 ounces. You do catch the odd bigger one, but not that often. Rig wise, I would just use, basically all my fishing is pretty much done around sort of like Chianti style floats. So I have all I've got is my favourite float, and probably the float I use most in all my fishing is the F1 maggot. I think it's a phenomenal float. It's just got a carbon stem, which I think is important when you lay it in, and then you want to sort of hold on to the float and let it fall as natural as possible. So with that, I use a strung out shotting pattern from the hook. It's like a tapered one. So my first dropper would be on the hook length, and then the next one is at 6 inches, and then the one above that is at 5 inches, and then 4 inches, 3 inches, 2 inches, an inch. So you probably have it strung out over maybe like 18 inches, something like that. Dropper wise, when I'm fishing with say 412s, I'll use number 11 shot all the way up the float. When I'm fishing with 414s, I use number 10 shot all the way up the float, and the same with number 16s. I use number 9s all the way up the float. If I was fishing 410s, I'd probably use number 12s, you know, if you can get them on the line. If you're on one of those days in the middle of winter where you've got a bit of a ripple, you need to fish it like that, because you can see that bristle majority of the time. The days when it's flat, calm and still, I was using, and it's exactly the same Chianti style float. It's got a very, very thin bristle, and because some of the bites you were getting, it was almost like it wasn't going under. It was just sort of shaking the float. You'd see an indication like that, and you strike, and there'd be a skimmer there, and it'd have in its mouth, but the float hasn't gone under. It's just sort of moved. But after fishing, sometimes for 2 or 3 hours, you get into seeing that, and you start striking at those bites. I would have another rig set up a lot of the time, which tended to be a bit heavier, maybe 414s or 416s, and that was just done with a dropper on the hook length, another dropper 6 inches away, and then another dropper 7 inches above that, which would then be the bottom of your bulk. So it's just literally like a bulk, a couple of droppers, and you can just sort of drop that in, hold on to it if it was a little bit windy, or you just wanted to try and gain some better presentation. Hook length wise, I used to tie all my own hook lengths, but then I got into using these when they came out, and that was just the pre-tied SFL, and they're done to power line. It's a brilliant hook. I actually think it'd be really suitable for fishing for F1s and small carp. So they're down in. I actually had a lot of success using the 20. Again, I just think it's a bit light, a bit better presentation, just get more bites, and I've landed carp on those orders up to sort of £5. So yeah, they're phenomenal. I hope that helps everyone. Just one last tip, which I can't take credit for. It actually comes from Darren Cox, and I started fishing Meadowlands a few years ago, and he walks down with a sort of plumber's water thermometer, and takes the temperature. I actually went to Tesco's and bought one. I think these were like £1, and put it on a bit of elastic, and I chuck it in at the start just to see what the water temperature is, and then I pull it out every hour just to see what's going on, whether the water temperature is going up or it's stabilising, and it gives me a bit of an idea of, I think when you put it at the start, it gives me an idea of how it's going to fish. So I would definitely get yourself one of these. Those days when you get there and the water temperature is 5 degrees and you think it possibly higher, or sometimes I've got there and you think it's cold and I've put this in, the water temperature has been 10 degrees, and so I know that it's going to fish a lot better, and I can add a bit more particle to my ground bait. I can put more ground bait in. So that would be my top tip. Get yourself a thermometer and use it a bit more. I don't see enough anglers doing it, and I definitely think that will help you certainly trying to understand what's going on during the match. I hope that helps everyone. If you've got any questions, just put it in the comments, and we'll try and answer them, or just send me a message on Messenger or Facebook. Cheers. See you later. Bye bye.